This video is sponsored by Crimson Manifesto, Knuckles OX, and Baba Snake. About a full year has passed since the events of Deadzone, with the entire family getting wrapped up in their individual pursuits across their beloved planet Earth. As comes with the passage of time, one of these pursuits is motivated by the power of wishes, as Pilaf has contracted little son Goku to help his gang on a quest for the Dragon Balls, once noticing they're being gathered by someone else, banking on the boy's good nature and naivete to make him more manageable than his father, with this leading them up to the frozen north. Speaking of, by coincidence, at this exact time, Bardock is also up at the Sudamai Subudi Mountains, literally the coldest place on Earth, training by using the so-called eternal walls of ice and the extreme climate to help push himself to the limit. However, the one collecting the Dragon Balls is not he, but a mad scientist with a 40-year grudge against fate and the world by the name of Dr. Gine, having rather uneventfully collected the Dragon Balls for the purpose of getting back into his and his partner's frozen fortress of all things. However, he too is surprised by the second wish, having not found updated legends that spoke of it, though like with his first ideas for using near-limitless mystical powers, it is narrow-minded, as he just wishes for all this melted ice, frost, and snow to be moved onto those most equipped to oppose them, feeling it to be cosmic justice. While sweat-dropping, Shinran and Tarombo once again grant this movie villain's stupid wish, more for the sake of getting rid of the guy than anything else, seeing them split into 9 separate streaks of light, as the once frozen fortress rises out of a newly created glacial lakefront. Suddenly, on Mount Pauzu, the Sun Chun Serial Clan's house is frozen over in a flash, creating a terrible chill in the entire valley, which causes Grandpa Gohan to uncharacteristically cry out a curse word, as he slips on the sudden frost and strains his back, having been splitting some wood for afternoon exercise. Back in the north, after the wish is granted, and thus the Dragon Ball snagged from under our hero's noses to free Willow's fortress, matters only become worse, as suddenly, from the snow surrounding the fortress, emerges a gang of strange-looking dark gray and blue creatures with beady red eyes and bird-like faces, though most dangerously, they all bear sharp black claws and talons. Irritated in his loss and confident in his muscle, Pilaf demands to know who these freaks are, and for them to bow to their future emperor or get out of his sight, as his day has already gone bad enough. However, the creatures only robotically squeak out that they are biomen, before crouching in a position to attack. Not needing an excuse to move his body and warm up, Goku excitedly leaps into the fray, successfully overpowering and outmaneuvering the disposable warriors when separated, and even showing adaptation from the battle with the Spice Boys, as he's able to weave around and deal with the group attacks as well. However, once Pilaf, Shu, and Mai are targeted and distract him, he's left open to be crowded on and mauled by the biomen. That is until a strong hand stops the claw of one going for a fatal blow. Seeing all eyes turn to behold none other than a rather blue and chilly looking Bardock, who questions what in the hell is going on here, and where the hell did these Cybermen come from? He didn't think the Earth was infested with these pests. As if recognizing something, the Biomen again introduce themselves insistently, as if they've been insulted by this comparison. Thus, they turn their ire on Earth's mightiest warrior, more fiercely than his progeny, though ruthlessly using the creature whose hand he's holding as a flail. Bardock ends this instantly, and stains the snow with the viscera of Biomen, his eyes shifting to Pilaf expectantly, as Goku thanks him for the save and passes out. Then suddenly and painfully, Bardock is caught off guard and restrained by a mysterious energy field, which shocks and locks his muscles up, making it even harder to muster his ki in the cold. Though in the process of this, and the prior melting of the area, the ice they're standing on gives way, sending Goku and Pilaf's gang tumbling into an ice cave below them. Thinking fast, Pilaf deploys a capsule containing mech suits he'd created earlier, with these allowing for a safe landing, and for Mai to catch Goku, even if Shu winds up face first in the snowdrift with his legs flailing in the air. By the time the group get their bearings and escape the ice cave, there is no sign of either the Biomen or Bardock himself, and with the quest in general also being a bust, Pilaf tries to take this as him getting off easy, as a result ordering Goku not to mention this to anyone, giving the kid deja vu to last year. With this done, it only makes sense to get out of this cold, seeing Goku and the Pilaf gang part ways, as the boys now decide to head back to Mount Pauzu, both to get a nice hot meal from his mama to warm up, and to see if he can meet up with his papa, since it's a bit strange he didn't stick around to look cool and strong, and he's still pretty confused on what's going on. Though strangely enough, he does happen to fall asleep on the Nimbus during his long trip from the north, basking in the warm sun breaking through the clouds as he flies over the ocean, and quietly mumbling a cute song in his head about how much he admires and loves his papa, though he can't quite seem to keep the tune right, since it almost seems like someone is trying to scream into his mind for help as they're brutally tortured. Meanwhile, in a dark and dank lair, we find Bardock held in the same rather impressive energy prison from before, though now thankfully with far less intensity, not for the Saiyan's comfort however, but for the sake of not interfering with the brutal torture currently being conducted by Dr. Gine, who demands to be told the location of the man he knows is the true world's strongest, his brother Bryce Liu. Groaning tiredly for the 9,001st time since his capture, though more so out of irritation than fear, Bardock again desperately insists that he is his brother, part of him only continuing to argue for his own pride, as who else could possibly be the world's strongest but him, only for the quack doctor to matter-of-factly reply that Bardock's name was Bruce Chun, whilst using a machine to try and implant something onto the back of the Saiyan's head, demanding to know if the monkey man thinks I'm stupid, to which Bardock quips that it's either that or deaf since he's not listening, though this is cut cut off by the painful sensation of the implant piercing his skull, and as lights pop behind his eyes and agony envelops him, Bardock damns his over-reliance on so many aliases. As this happens, Gine cheers that finally, after 50 years of waiting, his plan is coming to fruition. Though from behind the mad scientist, a much more measured voice tries to temper his companion, reminding him that he's only been stewing in his grudge for 40 years, not 50, causing Gine to incessantly protest that 50 sounds better. However, the other doctor retorts the time was much harder on himself. The disembodied voice then turns his attention to checking on the sweating and panting Bardock, genteelly introducing himself as the titular Dr. Wheelo this facility is named after, before much more reasonably trying to negotiate with the alien hero, first appealing to his better nature to help the less fortunate by giving up his body if he'd be so kind, only for this to yield no dice due to how little of that there is for the Saiyan. When that doesn't work, he tries to tempt him by mentioning his amazing intellect and the feats of good and justice they could accomplish by combining, with this actually swaying Bardock for a moment, as this kind of sounds worth it if it gives him the power to wreak vengeance on Frieza and revive his victims at his leisure. But when Dr. Wheelo's greyhound-sized brain is revealed, the prospect is pretty concretely turned down by the Saiyan, who growls that even with the lack of oxygen going to his own brain from blood loss, he can tell that's a bad idea. Naturally, Wheelo is rather crestfallen by this rejection, though comforting his partner, Gine encourages ever-inducing enthusiasm, as doing things the hard way works best for them, since it's more likely to bring the world's strongest here. And best of all, he will probably be better endowed than this body, seeing both Bardock and Wheelo desperately question what that has to do with anything, as Gine continues his heinous acts gleefully. Meanwhile, as Goku arrives home to the now frozen Mount Paozu, he's both confused and disappointed, since he had been warming back up. Here, he finds Muezli and Gine are both rather enraged over the state of the house, as it's so cold all of a sudden it's almost like magic, forcing them to use their ki to begin defrosting the mountain. Though when they see him, they pretty quickly insist he put on a jacket or throw on some layers, the temperature being so low that on top of everything else, they've been fretting over Grandpa Gohan after his fall. Thankfully, since it wasn't too bad, it's not too hard to convince the family patriarch to go and relax at Master Roshi's, where they know it's warm, while they figure things out, at which point the mothers ask Goku if he has any idea why this happened, with the boy honestly not being sure if this has any correlation with his prior adventure at all, and so clans up as per Pilaf's instruction, even though Muezli pretty keenly suspects the Dragon Balls had something to do with this, causing her to huff that it seems like either Raditz, Granola, or more likely Bardock is slacking off again, which is even more evidence that he's a horrible influence on kids as young as Goku. Meanwhile, not long after arriving at Kame House thanks to his premium flying car, Grandpa Gohan does indeed get to enjoy the humidity, as he and his master quite quickly find themselves having brewed some tea to go along with the herb-infused brownies the hermit baked, relaxing in the warm island breeze and enjoying them alongside Turtle and baby Gamera, since today happens to be one where the other students are doing some training away from home. Though all the same, they still receive guests in the form of more biomen, who in their search for the strongest challenge both old fighters. However, since both far exceed their canon selves at this point, this is child's play, despite Grandpa's sore back, as with wisdom and the bond of master and disciple empowering them, they fight the disposable warriors off rather well, until Dr. Gine introduces himself and creates leverage by having Turtle and baby Gamera threatened instead, at which point the Turtle School members surrender and are led into a submarine with this course set for the Sudamai Subudi Mountains. There, they are tested to see how powerful their bodies are, despite Dr. Wheelo complaining this makes no sense with their already having captured Bruce Chun, and mourning Gine's corruption of his creations, meant to help the elderly, as they've been made into 3 brutal artificial lifeform warriors, Miko Katsume, Kishime, and Ebi Furia, who defeat the experienced fighters with a bit more difficulty than in canon, but still, soundly enough for Wheelo to entirely question why he can't just be given one of those bodies. However, unbeknownst to the kidnappers, a former enemy of the Turtle School happens to keep a pretty close eye on it these days, even when Goku isn't around, and so King Piccolo makes a beeline for Mount Paozu, as he fears Bardock would be rather upset if he didn't do his utmost for those geezers. Thus, the Green Man arrives in the middle of Goku's interrogation, and having no vow of silence with the odious little imp Pilaf, the king reveals what he's found out, with Goku quickly confessing as well once he learns of the danger the others are in. Hearing this, Gine shoots Muezli a thumbs up and a goofy grin, as if to say she told her Bardock wasn't a bad influence, causing her companion to sweat drop that it's not great the true bad egg and Pilaf is still hanging around. But regardless, upon learning that Bardock had already been involved in things, yet had disappeared and not settled it, causes a slight worry to cross everyone's minds, as they jump to the worst conclusions. However, despite the remaining mystery, it's clear where the problem stems from, and so the mothers set off for the frigid mountains, with Gine ordering Goku and Piccolo to stay here where it's safe, while continuing the defrosting efforts, and Muezli telling the Demon King to talk with Kami about getting them more info and reinforcements. Though loath to continue his sickeningly good deeds any further, a look from Goku, which clearly denotes he overtly fears these women more than his father, and thus doesn't advise picking a fight with them, helps Piccolo to tell that arguing with these ladies is pointless, and so he agrees to stay and do as asked. With that, the peppy gals are off, as Goku and Piccolo begin melting the snow and reaching out to Kami for help. As they soar across the world, making greater time than Goku would on the Nimbus in the original film, Gine and Muezli arrive outside Wheelo's fortress, fairly unhappy to find out it's actually still way colder here, as well as the fact that the enemy knows they're coming, thanks to their large key signatures. And worse than that, they are suddenly attacked by Miko Katsume, who nearly drowns them in the freezing water, forcing them to retreat into the fortress and beginning the mad scientist's twisted gauntlet as they enter a room of automated spiked drone death spears, which go on the attack, in sync with the blubbery bio-warrior. However, having two powerful fighters instead of one means the stretchy monster is only defeated easier, as Muezli is able to snipe the drones far more efficiently than Goku would in canon, by simply firing a single ki blast and exerting immense control over it, to cause it to bounce and chain through the adjacent death spears around them, while Gine stacks her baby boy's ultimate technique to help her tear through the tubby warrior's bulk, by biting into him to create a rip in his tummy, which allows the air inside his balloon-like body to escape, at which point he flies around wildly and straight into the path of the explosion caused by Muesli's ki blast volley. In hindsight, this feels a bit wrong to Gine, as she gets the feeling that creature was strangely self-aware and averse to suffering for a rampaging beast, but Muezli hurries her along. Journeying up further, they reach the next level, which is a large chamber where every Furia and Kishime seek to ambush them, though once again, the presence of another fighter makes this very different than in canon, as Muezli decides to handle the green guy, and Gine the more wild-looking one. Wanting to shock his opponent into submission, Kishime reveals the tentacles he excretes from his arms to form his electrocutionation whips, while every Furia tries to freeze Gine solid, with a technique unimaginably called the Frozen Fist. However, this seems to anger Gine, not at the attacks or the pain caused by them, but because she becomes a bit jealous, noting if she had either of these abilities, she could easily knock down the power bill and keep her dishes at just the right temperature. The surge of anger at such a waste helping her to break the ice around her before rushing in and mauling up Furia, who is shocked to learn that the Huntress has lined her clothing with nice warm animal pelts, while Kishime is tricked into thinking he's finally caught a hold of Muezli, only for the Cerulean to cunningly coil his whips around her rubbery shoes, insulating her from being shocked and making it easier to bring her target in for a point-blank ki bolt to the face. From here, they proceed up to the final level of the fortress, where they plan to rescue Master Roshi and Grandpa Gohan. However, before they make it there, their backup arrives, being none other than a very flustered-looking Piccolo Daimao, Goku, Anin, and Chi-Chi. Not too happy to see their backup consists mostly of children, the ladies demand to know what the meaning of this is, learning that due to the haste at which they've cleaned out the enemy, the members of the Satan and Crane school are unavailable or preoccupied, thus forcing Goku to assemble the B-team, with this leaving the mothers a bit more irritated, as they hope whatever Granola and Raditz are up to is damn well important. Cutting over to Raditz and Granola for the sake of it, Granola is indeed hard at work, tracking down his current target, which is apparently a volatile mother duo of master criminals, simply known as Hasky and Launch, and without his eyes, it's not exactly simple work, while at the same time, Raditz is hard at work in his own way, doing some rather unconventional training under Spike, as the devil is forcing him to try and keep his calm, while he continuously loses in video games in front of the Saiyans and even Bulma, Tights, and Jocko on occasion, all of whom have been encouraged to mock the Saiyan for his failures, as Devilman insists this is the perfect practice for taming the inner demon. Back with the Z-Fighters, they at last meet up with the old martial artists, who are mercifully and relatively unharmed, before they then proceed to confront Dr. Cochin, and by proxy, the reluctant Dr. Wheelo, fairly quickly getting acquainted with the former's insanity, and the latter's seeming tragically heroic nature, as he once again makes a polite plea for a body, only for both the newcomers to refuse, and his partner to reject the idea of using either the green alien, old men, women, or children, again on account of what's between their legs or the lack thereof weirdly. Nevertheless, Cochin has a secret contingency plan, revealing the fact that Bardock has been held here all along, as the crazy quack quickly has him rise from the elevator in the floor. At first, despite Bardock's eyes being bloodshot and the strange device on his head, everyone is relieved to see the Saiyan here, now expecting him to simply turn around and blow Cochin away, as he is the world's strongest after all. Even Kakarot happily runs over to greet him, though being among the first to notice something is off thanks to their individual grudges or obsessions with Bardock, Muezli and Piccolo call for him to be careful, giving Goku enough forewarning to dodge a brainwashed backfist better than his own progeny would in canon, thus tipping off and prompting a battle of the Z-Fighters versus brainwashed Bardock, as it's clear he's not in his right mind. In a testament to his growth and how off his father's fighting technique is thanks to whatever's controlling him, Goku is able to contend with Bardock decently well, buying himself time for Piccolo and the others to join the fray, as they all try to both handle Bardock's immense power and more importantly break him out of whatever's doing this. Initially, Gine appears to be the best fighter to take point and base their support around, being both the strongest and most familiar with Bardock, but she finds it hard to fight at full strength against someone suffering such manipulation, while Piccolo and Goku simply can't overpower him, even together, nor can any of Anin's sacred powers or Roshi and Gohan's wisdom help, rather ironically putting their fates into Muezli's hands. Thanks to having thought about taking down Bardock almost more than anyone else, she has a sure kill plan already, and so asks for everyone's help, sparing a glance at Goku and Gine's worried expressions, and sighing that she has a plan to save Bardock. at least for today. This helps get everyone on track to aid her, and so the name of the game quickly becomes restraining Bardock, which is easier said than done. Even in a mass-coordinated scuffle to grapple him, as Bardock is still able to slip free and overpower Piccolo and Roshi's holds and dodge Chi-Chi and Anna's throwing weapons empowered by sacred flames. However, thinking a bit more cunningly, Goku and Gohan are the first to make an opening with a bending Kamehameha and power pole combo. This leaves Bardock's back exposed for Gine to tackle, and bear hug her mate to immobilize him with all her strength, as she squeezes down hoping she's bought the time Muezli needs, only to be blown back as Bardock roars towards the ceiling and flares his aura intensely enough to crack the foundation of Wheelo's fortress, freeing himself of those pestering him, even if he's left panting slightly. Though regardless, Muezli has been given just what she needs, as without warning, she puts all her speed and power into a low-to-the-ground charge towards the Saiyan, which causes him to prepare a crouched guard in anticipation. But it is far too late, as Muezli rather coolly decides to slide under it and bury her foot into his crotch, kicking into it again to use it as a platform to launch and flip herself off of, floating above him for a better vantage point, and giving her the sight of the Saiyan in agony as he falls, which she endeavors to burn into her brain for future enjoyment, before he lowers his head and she fires a bolt of ki into the back of it as the finishing blow. For a moment, everyone seems shocked, as even Dr. Coaching and especially Dr. Wheelo are caught off guard by this unflinching ruthlessness from supposed heroes. However, Muesli's true target is made clear by the very loud and intricately curse-filled grunts of Bardock as he comes to, the device embedded in his skull crumbling away from Muesli's brain surgery precise shot, as the aftermath of hitting the blow beforehand leaves him pretty wobbly on his feet, but thankfully alive, free, and in his right mind, as he's already swearing bloody revenge on Cochin and Wheelo, even if he nearly falls over while saying it. In a display of uncharacteristic kindness to the Saiyan she just shot, Muezli offers him her shoulder for support, seeming weirdly satisfied and sweet towards Bardock, as she doesn't even get snippy with him after questions of what the hell she did, instead moving to stand along the Z-Fighters and demand the scientists give it up, as they've lost and obviously been proved as less of the world's greatest minds. Seeing the writing on the wall that his miserable life is apparently about to end even more miserably, a fit of despair overwhelms Dr. Wheelo in an emotional breakdown, which leads to his discovering his refrigerated jar is actually a rather massive and powerful exosuit, seemingly solving his world's strongest body problem, at least on paper, which Cochin expects some praise for, except for the whole lack of taste, smell, or touch thing, as well as having no interest in being the strongest, which Gine pityingly notes must be awful. Now thoroughly blinded by his unlucky circumstances, Dr. Wheelo begins to rampage uncontrollably, destroying much of his own fortress and brutally offing Dr. Cochin, either by accident or perhaps as a result of 40 years of brewing resentment, before engaging the Z-Fighters, now joined by Bardock, in a matter of survival, seeking to protect Chi-Chi and the others. Annie reveals another of her sacred abilities, and so gigantifies herself to try and drive off this mechanical monstrosity, inspiring Piccolo to try the same, though neither are a match, meaning for a time, they're all ragdolled around as Wheelo struggles to rein in his emotions. Impressively, despite being slightly weaker than his movie canon counterpart, Wheelo still holds enough power to pose a dangerous challenge with unintentional techniques like his gigantic bomber. The twist being Kaioken and the Spirit Bomb aren't needed from the heroes to contend with it, since the loss of a decade of power and development for Wheelo, and the gaining of one for the heroes is worth about that kind of trade-off, as the Z-Warriors get into a better sync of fighting altogether, with this seeing the results of this final battle becoming much like the original movie's canon, with a clash of fierce ki attacks forcing Dr. Wheelo out of his destroyed fortress and into the atmosphere, where hysterically he prepares a photon strike, which will consume the remainder of his life support and power systems, ending not only his misery, but this entire world that's forsaken him. Fed up with the cold and danger to his family, friends, and planet, Bardock marshals his full power, and even the remaining ki given to him by the present Z-Fighters, into his most powerful final spirit cannon to date, an attack sure to destroy its target, while Muezli, being in total agreement with Bardock for once, uses her enhanced sight to tell him where Wheelo's weakest point is, even helping him to aim with the enemy so far away. However, getting an off feeling about such a violent and somber way of ending things, Gine suddenly decides to fly up into the atmosphere, in the line of fire herself, even asking Goku to help her out with something, which the boy dutifully does, showing no hesitation at all once he sees his mom moving with purpose. This worries Bardock and Muezli to no end, but trusting completely in Gine, the man and woman who love her most, both wordlessly agree to wait and see what she's playing at. As they arrive at the edge of breathable space, Gine and Goku look around for Dr. Wheelo, though it is the sound of his sobs that ultimately draw their attention, suggesting that perhaps here at the end, he is actually having second thoughts. A bit callously, Goku asks how he can cry when he doesn't have eyes, which the doctor answers isn't biologically possible, but he's just so sad. Though strangely enough, this makes Gine smile, as it's clear that if Goku feels comfortable enough speaking casually with him, then he can't be all bad, with the Saiyan woman showing Wheelo some empathy, suggesting that he doesn't really want to kill everyone, he's just heartsick after 40 long years of waiting for a body. In a bereaved tone, Wheelo confirms this, with Gine asking if he'd be willing to wait one more year then, as if so, she might be able able to help him, making the robotic doctor ask what she means. Smiling now, Gine reveals that if he calls off the fighting and comes back to Earth, then in a year's time, she and her son will personally help him collect the Dragon Balls again to wish for a new body. Which causes Willow to splutter that if this was always an option, why didn't Gine do that to begin with? Shrugging a little, Goku replies that he doesn't know, probably because that guy seemed pretty stupid. Though wanting to keep the mood trending towards happy, Gine cuts in, promising that if Willow can be patient for her, she'll prepare a celebratory meal for him so good, he'll never take his taste buds for granted ever again. After a pause, this proposition only seems to make Willow cry all the harder, causing Goku to worry he won't accept. However, when the mecha swings his mechanical arms at the Saiyans, he does to happily pull both into a hug, whilst gleefully crying his gratitude, as Gine's natural motherly instincts have allowed her to get through to the imprisoned scientist, and help him calm himself, as after so long, he's realized just how much he missed his own mother. And so it is to the shock of their loved ones that now 3 companions return to the Earth, as Goku and Gine riding atop Willow's head happily declare everything to be alright, as they guide the doctor through apologizing for the trouble he's caused and thanking everyone for their help. Seeing this shocking conclusion, Muezli and Bardock are so worn out that they fall to the frozen ground together, looking up the bizarre merriment that begins now that the crisis is averted. Subconsciously huddling together to stay warm in their exhaustion, they wind up quipping and laughing that it seems in the end, Gine was the true world's strongest, as when it comes to strength of heart, there are few even a fraction as mighty, with Bardock even joking that maybe his mate should enter the next Budokai, which Muezli ponders pretty curiously. Maybe she, or they should.